The small human ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Captain Deho stood on the bridge, watching the massive structure ahead grow larger with each passing moment. The conclave sphere was unlike anything humanity had ever built. It was a station the size of a small moon, covered in lights that sparkled like stars. Thousands of ships from hundreds of different worlds circled around it like insects around a lamp. Deho felt his stomach tighten with worry. He had been a ship captain for 20 years, but he had never felt this nervous before. Standing beside him was Jiwan, Earth's lead diplomat. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. On his other side stood Taeyong, a military advisor who had fought in the Mars Independence War. All three of them knew this meeting would change everything for humanity. The communication system beeped. A voice spoke in Galactic Common, the language all spacefaring species used. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Bay 47. The Council awaits your presence." Deho guided the ship into the docking bay. As they walked through the station's corridors, they saw aliens of every shape and size. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated through the air or crawled on multiple limbs. Some were covered in fur, others in scales, and some seemed to be made of living crystal. But all of them stopped and stared at the humans as they passed. The looks were not friendly. The council chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched so high above them that Deho could barely see it. 7 massive thrones sat in a semicircle, each one holding a representative from the elder species. These were the races that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They looked down at the 3 humans like giants looking at ants. The center throne held Vectos, a Krillian. His species looked like massive reptiles that walked upright. His scales were deep purple and his eyes glowed with an orange light. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Humans of Earth," Vectos began, "you have been summoned before this council to receive our judgment. 50 years ago, your species discovered faster-than-light travel. You entered our galaxy without permission. You have settled on worlds without seeking our approval. This cannot continue." Jiwan stepped forward. Her voice was calm and steady, but Deho could see her hands were clenched into fists. "We came in peace. We have harmed no one. We only wish to explore and grow as all species do." A sound like grinding stones filled the chamber. It took Deho a moment to realize it was laughter. The council members were laughing at them. Another council member spoke. This one was a Velaran, a being that looked like flowing water held together by energy fields. "Peace, growth, foolish child species. There is an order to this galaxy. The strong rule, the weak serve. This is how it has always been. This is how it will always be." Vectos raised one massive clawed hand for silence. For 3,000 years, the Council has maintained peace across 10,000 worlds. We have done this through strength and order. Every species that enters our space must pay tribute. Resources, technology, labor. All must contribute to the greater whole. He leaned forward, and his orange eyes seemed to burn. "Humanity will pay tribute. You will provide 40% of all goods your worlds produce. You will share all technology you develop. You will send workers to serve in council territories for periods of no less than 10 years. You will accept council inspectors on all your worlds. You will obey council law above your own." The chamber fell silent. Deho felt like he couldn't breathe. 40% of everything they made? That would cripple Earth's economy. Forced labor for 10 years? That was slavery. Council law over human law? That meant they would no longer be free. Jiwan's voice was barely above a whisper. "And if we refuse?" Vecto smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Then we will take what we want from the ashes of your worlds. Look around you, human. This chamber holds representatives from species who have served the council for millennia. Not one has ever refused. Those who tried are now dust and memory." Behind the 7 thrones, holographic images appeared. They showed dead worlds, burned cities. Oceans turned to glass. One image showed a planet that had been cracked in half like an egg. These were the species that had said no to the council. Taeyong took a step forward, his hand moving toward his weapon. Deho grabbed his arm, stopping him. Fighting here would accomplish nothing except getting them killed. Jiwan took a deep breath. "We need time to bring this offer to our government. This is not a decision we can make alone." Vectos waved his hand dismissively. "You have 30 standard days. Return with your answer. Choose submission in life or pride in death. There is no third option." The 3 humans were escorted back to their ship. No one spoke until they were safely away from the conclave sphere. and jumping to faster than light speed. Then Taeyong exploded, "Tribute, they want to make us slaves. We should have fought them right there." Daeho shook his head. "And died for nothing? No, we bring this to Earth, we let the people decide." The journey back to Earth took 5 days. When they arrived, President Minho was waiting. He was an old man who had led Earth through the difficult years after the climate wars. His face was lined with worry as he listened to their report. The United Earth Assembly convened in Geneva. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered. Daeho, Jiwon, and Taeyong told their story. They showed the recordings of the Council's demands and the images of destroyed worlds. The debate lasted for days. Some representatives argued for submission. "We cannot fight the entire galaxy," said one. "Better to live as subjects than die as heroes." Others disagreed strongly. A representative from the African Union stood and spoke with fire in her voice. "My ancestors were enslaved for centuries. They fought for freedom and won. I will not spit on their sacrifice by kneeling to alien masters now." General Hyejin, the commander of Earth's defense forces, presented the military situation. It was grim. Humanity had perhaps 5,000 combat-capable ships. Intelligence suggested the Council had access to millions. Human weapons were primitive compared to Council technology. In a straight fight, Earth would lose quickly. "But," Hyejin continued, "we do not have to fight a straight fight. The Council has been the dominant power for so long. They have forgotten what real war looks like. They fight with rules and honor. We do not have to." President Minho called for a vote on the final day. The question was simple: submit or resist. The votes were counted in silence. When the results appeared on the screens, Minho stood and spoke to the chamber. "By a vote of 73%, Earth has decided. We will not submit. We will not pay tribute. We will not become slaves." Cheers erupted in the chamber, but Minho raised his hand for silence. His next words were heavy with sorrow. "But we must understand what this means. War is coming. Many of us will die. Our cities may burn. Our children may grow up in a galaxy that hates us. But they will grow up free, and that is worth any price." Jiwon was given the task of returning to the conclave sphere with Earth's answer. As her ship prepared to leave, she looked out at Earth through the viewport. The blue and green planet looked so peaceful from space. She wondered how many of those lights she saw would still be shining when this was over. Daeho approached her. "Are you ready for this?" Jiwon nodded slowly. "No, but it doesn't matter. Some things must be said, even when we're afraid." The ship jumped to faster than light, carrying Earth's answer to the Council, an answer that would start a war that would change the galaxy forever. The 30 days passed too quickly. All across Earth and its colonies, people prepared for what was coming. Factories that once made civilian goods now produced weapons and armor. Shipyards worked day and night building new warships. Children said goodbye to parents who enlisted in the defense forces. Everyone knew their lives were about to change forever. Admiral Sunwoo stood in the command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. He was a quiet man who had spent 40 years in Earth's Navy. Now he commanded all of humanity's military forces. The responsibility weighed on him like a mountain. On the screens around him, he could see every human ship, station, and defense platform. It looked like a lot until he remembered what they were facing. His second-in-command, Commander Bora, stood beside him. "All ships report ready, Admiral." "The fleet is assembled," Sunwoo nodded. "Good. When the Council comes, we need to be ready to hit them hard and fast. We cannot win a long battle. Our only chance is to make them bleed so badly they think twice about continuing." Across the solar system, soldiers and sailors waited. On Mars, in the asteroid belt, on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, humans prepared for the fight of their lives. They were scared. They knew many of them would die. But they also knew they were fighting for something that mattered more than their individual lives. Meanwhile, Jiwon's ship approached the conclave sphere again. This time she was not alone. 20 human warships escorted her vessel. It was a tiny force compared to the thousands of ships that surrounded the massive station. But it sent a message. Humanity would not come begging. Daeho commanded the escort fleet. He kept his ships in tight formation, weapons powered but not aimed at anyone. Yet, the tension on his bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every sensor operator watched for signs of attack. Every gunner had their finger near the firing button. The council chamber looked the same as before. The 7 thrones held the same 7 beings. But this time the chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of other species. Word had spread that the humans were returning with their answer. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Vectos looked down at Jiwon as she walked to the center of the chamber. "Human, you have returned. What is Earth's answer?" Jiwon's voice rang out clear and strong. She had practiced these words 1,000 times. "The people of Earth have considered your demand. We have debated it in our assemblies. We have thought about what it would mean for our future and our children's future." She paused and looked directly into Vectos's orange eyes. "Our answer is no." A murmur ran through the chamber like wind through trees. Vectos leaned forward, his massive form seeming even larger. "You refuse?" "We refuse," Jiwon confirmed. "We will not pay tribute. We will not submit to council rule. We will not become your slaves. If you want what is ours, you will have to take it. And I promise you this, the cost will be higher than you can imagine." For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Then Vectos rose from his throne. He seemed to fill the entire chamber with his presence. "So be it. The council declares humanity to be outlaws. All human worlds are forfeit. All human ships are to be seized or destroyed. All humans are to be captured and brought before this council for judgment." His voice grew louder with each word. "Let this be a lesson to all species. This is what happens to those who defy the council." Alarms began to sound. Jiwon heard Daeho's voice in her earpiece. "Get back to the ship now. Council warships are powering weapons." Jiwon ran. Taeyong and the other escorts ran with her. They could hear weapons fire echoing through the station's corridors. By the time they reached the docking bay, the battle had already started. Through the viewports, Jiwon could see the human escort fleet fighting desperately against hundreds of council ships. The human ships were faster and more maneuverable, but they were vastly outnumbered. As she watched, one human destroyer exploded in a ball of fire. Daeho's ship, the Horizon's Edge, swooped down toward the docking bay. Its weapons fired continuously, keeping council ships away. "Get on board!" Daeho's voice crackled over the radio. "We're leaving now!" The humans scrambled aboard. The moment the airlock sealed, the ship accelerated so hard that Jiwon was thrown to the floor. Around them, the remaining escort ships formed a protective screen. They fired missiles and energy beams at anything that got close. "Jump drive is charging," someone shouted. 30 seconds! Those 30 seconds felt like 30 years. Council ships swarmed around them like angry wasps. The human ships took hit after hit. 2 more escorts were destroyed. A third lost its engines and began to drift. "Jump!" Daeho ordered. Reality twisted. The stars stretched into lines of light. Then they were in faster-than-light space, racing away from the conclave sphere. Jiwon pulled herself into a chair. Her hands were shaking. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically to assess damage and check on the other ships. Of the 20 ships that had escorted her to the station, only 14 had escaped. "The war has begun," Daeho said quietly. He looked older than he had 30 days ago. Back on Earth, President Minho received the news. He addressed the planet from his office in Geneva. His face appeared on every screen, every phone, every display across human space. "My fellow humans," he began. "Today we told the Galactic Council that we would not submit. They have declared war on us. In the coming days, weeks, and months, we will face challenges unlike any humanity has ever faced. Many of us will die. Our homes may be destroyed. Our way of life will change forever." He paused, and when he continued, his voice was stronger. "But we will not surrender. We will not kneel. Our ancestors crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. They survived ice ages and plagues. They overcame tyrants and disasters. That strength is in us. That courage is in our blood. The council thinks we are weak because we are young. They think we will break easily. They are wrong. They are about to learn what humanity really is. They are about to learn what happens when you threaten our freedom, our families, our future. To every human, wherever you are, be strong, be brave, look after each other. We will get through this together. And when it is over, we will still be free." Admiral Sunwoo gave the order to mobilize. The human fleet moved into defensive positions around Earth and the major colonies. Everyone knew where the council would strike first. They would want to make an example. They would want to show other species what happened to those who refused the council's demands. Intelligence reports came in quickly. A massive council fleet was assembling. It was led by Krillian warships, the most powerful vessels in the galaxy. The fleet numbered over 200 ships. It was headed for Ganymede, humanity's largest settlement outside Earth. Commander Bora received orders to take her small force to Ganymede. 12 ships against 200. She looked at the order for a long moment, then sealed it in her private safe. Her crew would know soon enough. No need to terrify them before it was necessary. On Ganymede, civilian transports worked to evacuate as many people as possible. But there were 20,000 people on the station. The transports could only carry a fraction of them. Most would have to stay and take their chances. A young woman named Yunji volunteered to stay behind as part of the civilian defense force. She had been a mining engineer before the war. Now she learned how to use a rifle and how to set explosive charges. She was terrified, but she stayed anyway. Someone had to. Across human space, similar scenes played out. People said goodbye to loved ones. Soldiers boarded ships. Engineers checked weapons systems one last time. Everyone waited for the storm they knew was coming. In the Council fleet, Krillian commanders planned their attack. They expected an easy victory. The humans were primitives. They would break quickly. The commanders had fought many wars against many species. All of them had eventually surrendered. They did not know that humans were different. They did not know about Earth's bloody history. They did not know that humans had been fighting and killing each other for thousands of years, learning hard lessons about warfare that the Council had long forgotten. The Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light space near Ganymede. 200 massive warships appeared in the darkness. On the station, alarms wailed. People rushed to shelters. Commander Bora's 12 ships moved to intercept. The largest Krillian ship sent a message. Human vessels, surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Resist and you will be destroyed. Bora's response was simple. Come and get us. The battle for Ganymede began. The war that would change the galaxy had truly started. Commander Bora watched the Council fleet approach on her screens. 200 ships against her 12. The mathematics were simple and brutal. She would lose. Her people would die, but she could make the Council pay for their victory. All ships execute Plan Hornet, she ordered calmly. The human ships scattered in different directions. The Council fleet tried to follow, but their ships were slower and less agile. They expected the humans to form a defensive line and fight honorably. Instead, the human ships darted around like insects, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. Bora's ship released thousands of small drones. They looked like debris on Council sensors. The Council ships ignored them. That was their first mistake. The drones activated when Council ships passed nearby. Each one was a small nuclear warhead. They detonated in clusters, ripping through Council shields and armor. 3 Council ships exploded immediately. 5 more were badly damaged. The Council fleet reacted with shock. They had never seen weapons like this before. Weapons that hid and waited. Weapons that pretended to be harmless before striking. A Council commander sent an angry message. This is against the laws of honorable warfare. You fight without dignity. Bora laughed bitterly. Dignity? You came to enslave us and you talk about dignity? We will fight with whatever weapons we have. The battle raged around Ganymede. The human ships used every trick they knew. They fired missiles, then turned them off so they would drift like debris, only to reactivate them when Council ships got close. They hid in the rings of gas and ice around Jupiter, ambushing Council ships that came looking for them. They targeted Council communications and sensors, leaving enemy ships blind and confused. But there were too many Council ships. One by one, the human vessels were destroyed. Bora watched her fleet die around her. 10 ships gone, then 11. Finally, only her ship remained. Her weapons were nearly empty. Her shields were failing. Her engines were damaged. She made a decision. All crew to escape pods. Launch immediately. Commander, you need to evacuate too. Her second-in-command shouted. Someone needs to steer the ship. Go. That's an order. She waited until all the escape pods had launched. Then she aimed her ship at the largest Council vessel and pushed her engines to maximum. The Council ship tried to destroy her, but she was too close, moving too fast. Bora's ship struck the Council flagship like a spear. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball that could be seen from Ganymede's surface. On the station, Yunji and the other defenders watched the sky fill with fire. They knew what it meant. The human fleet was gone. Now the Council ships would come for them. Council ground forces landed in massive dropships. Thousands of soldiers in power armor marched toward the civilian shelters. They expected quick surrender. They were wrong. Yunji waited in a narrow corridor with 5 other defenders. They had placed explosive charges on the walls and ceiling. When the council soldiers entered the corridor, she triggered the detonation. The ceiling collapsed, crushing dozens of soldiers. All across the station, similar ambushes happened. The council soldiers were trained for honorable combat, soldier against soldier. They did not know how to fight an enemy that hid among civilians, that struck from shadows, that used the environment as a weapon. But the council had numbers. For every soldier the humans killed, 10 more took their place. Slowly, section by section, the station fell. The fighting was bitter and brutal. Council soldiers stopped taking prisoners after their medics were killed by what seemed to be wounded civilians. After 2 days of fighting, Ganymede fell. 20,000 civilians were dead. The station was a ruin, but the council had paid a terrible price. 40 of their ships were destroyed. 30 more were damaged so badly they had to return to council space for repairs. Thousands of council soldiers were dead. In the council chambers, Speaker Vectos raged. How is this possible? They were primitives. 12 ships against 200. We should have crushed them in minutes. A Velaran counselor spoke carefully. Perhaps we underestimated them. These humans fight in ways we have never seen. They do not follow the normal rules of warfare. Then we will teach them about rules. Vectos roared. Send more ships. Crush their other colonies. Make them pay for their defiance. But in the private chambers, other council members spoke quietly. Some questioned whether conquering humanity was worth this cost. The tribute they would gain from Earth would take decades to make up for the resources already spent on this war. On Earth, Admiral Sunwoo studied the reports from Ganymede. The battle had gone exactly as he had planned. Not the victory. He had known Bora's fleet would be destroyed. But the casualties they inflicted were higher than even he had hoped. This is how we win, he told his officers. We cannot defeat them in open battle, but we can make every battle cost them more than they want to pay. We make them bleed. We make them question. We make them doubt. He pulled up a star map showing all human colonies. The council will attack here next. And here, and here. We will defend each one the same way. Make them pay for every meter of ground. Make them fear every corridor, every building, every shadow. General Heejin implemented Operation Thorn across all human colonies. Every civilian who could fight was trained in guerrilla warfare. Every building was rigged with traps. Every street had hidden weapons caches. Every colony became a fortress that would be expensive to take and impossible to hold. On Mars, the council landed an occupation force. They took the capital city in 3 days of heavy fighting. Then the real war began. The occupation commander set up headquarters in the old colonial government building. That night, a truck bomb destroyed the building and killed 200 council soldiers. The humans who drove the truck died in the explosion. They knew they would. They did it anyway. Council patrols disappeared in the night. Their bodies would be found days later in the desert, stripped of weapons and equipment. Supply convoys were ambushed on the roads between cities. Fuel depots exploded. Communications towers fell. The council sent more troops. The resistance fighters just melted into the civilian population. Council soldiers could not tell friend from enemy. Everyone looked like a threat. A council officer arrested an old woman for breaking curfew. She smiled at him and whispered, "My grandson was on Ganymede." Then she detonated the explosives hidden under her coat. The officer and 5 of his soldiers died instantly. The council tried mass arrests. They tried collective punishment. They tried offering rewards for information. Nothing worked. The humans would not break. They would not surrender. They would not stop fighting. Back in council space, the news from the front lines caused shock and anger. Species that had paid tribute for centuries watched with secret satisfaction as the mighty council struggled against a single primitive species. Some whispered that maybe they too could resist if they were brave enough. The Valoran Collective sent a secret message to Earth. They offered to share intelligence about council fleet movements. They said they did it for humanitarian reasons, but everyone knew the truth. They wanted the council to fail. They wanted the tribute system to end. 6 months after the war began, the council had conquered 3 human colonies, but holding them was costing more resources than the colonies were worth. Meanwhile, 4 other council subject species had stopped paying full tribute. They claimed economic hardship, But everyone knew they were testing to see if the Council could enforce compliance while fighting humanity. Admiral Sun Wu watched the strategic map with grim satisfaction. Red markers showed lost human colonies, but yellow markers showed Council ships damaged or destroyed, Council troops committed to occupation duty, and Council resources stretched thin. "We are losing," he told President Minho during a secure call, "but we are losing slower than they expected. And while we lose, their empire starts to crack." Minho looked older than he had 6 months ago. The stress of leading humanity through its darkest hour showed in every line on his face. "How long can we hold?" "As long as we have to," Sun Wu replied. "Every day we survive is another day their subject species see that the Council can be defied. Every battle we fight makes their other conquests question whether their tribute is worth paying." On Mars, Yunji led a raid on a Council supply depot. Her team of 5 fighters moved through the darkness, avoiding patrols. They placed charges on fuel tanks and ammunition storage. As they prepared to leave, a searchlight caught them. "Run!" Yunji shouted. Council soldiers opened fire. 2 of her team fell. Yunji detonated the charges as she ran. The explosion lit up the night sky. She and the 2 survivors escaped into the tunnels beneath the city. Later, in a hidden shelter, she bandaged her wounds and wrote in her journal, "We lost Junho and Sora today. Good people. Brave people. But the depot is destroyed. The Council will be hungry and cold tonight. We will keep fighting. We will never stop. Never." Across human space, millions of people like Yunji fought their private wars. The Council had expected to crush humanity in weeks. Instead, the war ground on, month after month, with no end in sight. And slowly, very slowly, the balance began to shift. 1 year into the war, the cracks in the Council alliance grew wider. The Krillian Empire had borne the heaviest losses. Their fleets, once the terror of the galaxy, had been ground down in endless battles against an enemy that refused to fight fairly. Young Krillians no longer volunteered for military service. Parents hid their children to prevent them being drafted. Something unthinkable was happening. The Krillians were becoming afraid. In the Council chambers, the arguments grew heated. The Valoran representative stood before the assembly, his water form rippling with agitation. "We have spent more resources on this war than we would have gained from 1,000 years of human tribute. Meanwhile, 12 other species have reduced their payments to us. The Empire is weakening while we chase one stubborn species." Vecto slammed his claw on his throne's armrest. "If we show weakness now, the entire tribute system collapses. Every species will think they can defy us. We must make an example of humanity no matter the cost." "And if the cost is the Empire itself?" the Valoran asked quietly. The chamber fell silent. No one had dared speak such thoughts aloud before. On Earth, Admiral Sun Wu prepared humanity's first major counteroffensive. For a year, Earth had been on defense, losing colonies but making the Council pay dearly. Now it was time to strike back. He called Captain Jamin to his office. Jamin was young for a ship captain, only 35, but he had proven himself in a dozen battles. More importantly, he was creative. He thought in ways that confused the Council's rigid military minds. "I have a mission for you," Sun Wu said. "Deep in Krillian space, they have a research station. Our intelligence says they are developing new shield technology there. If we could steal it, we could close the technology gap." Jamin studied the star charts. "That is 300 light-years behind enemy lines. Even if we got there, getting back would be nearly impossible." "I know," Sun Wu said. "That is why I am not ordering you to go. I am asking for volunteers." 2 days later, Jamin's ship left Earth with a crew of 50 volunteers. They knew they probably would not come home. They went anyway. The journey took 3 weeks, moving slowly to avoid Council patrols. They disguised their ship to look like a Council transport. They used codes stolen by Valoran spies to pass through checkpoints. Twice they were nearly discovered. Twice they bluffed their way through. The research station orbited a red giant star. It was small, only housing about 200 scientists and guards. The Krillians had placed it there because they thought it was too remote for anyone to attack. Jamin waited until the station's night cycle. Then his team moved in fast. They disabled the communications array first so the station could not call for help. Then they breached the hull and stormed inside. The fighting was quick and brutal. The station guards were not expecting an attack. Most surrendered when they realized they were outnumbered. The scientists tried to destroy their research data, but human technicians stopped them. Within 2 hours, Jamin's team had copied every file in the station's computers. They took 3 Krillian scientists as prisoners who could explain the technology. Then they ran for their ship. Council ships were already responding to the attack, but Jamin's ship was fast. They jumped to faster than light speed, just as the first Council warships arrived. The journey home took 4 weeks because they had to take a longer route to avoid patrols. But they made it. The stolen technology was worth its weight in gold. Human scientists studied the Krillian shield designs and found ways to improve them. Within months, human ships were being retrofitted with hybrid shields that combined human and Krillian technology. The battlefield advantage the Council had enjoyed began to shrink. News of the raid spread through both human and Council space. For humans, it was a much-needed victory that proved they could strike back. For the Council, it was a humiliating demonstration that even their home territory was not safe. More species began to question the Council's power. If humans could raid deep into Krillian space, maybe the Council was not as invincible as they claimed. Tribute payments dropped further. Some species stopped paying entirely. Then came the Battle of Luna, the largest space battle in human history. The Council had decided to end the war with one massive strike. They assembled a fleet of 50,000 ships from all 7 Council species. Their plan was to destroy Earth's moon, then use it as a base to bombard Earth itself into submission. General Hyagin commanded the defense. She had every human ship that could fly. Civilian ships were armed with whatever weapons could be mounted on them. Mining ships, cargo haulers. Even luxury yachts carried missiles and beam weapons. In total, she had 30,000 ships. The fleets met in space between Earth and Luna. For 3 days, the battle raged. Ships exploded by the hundreds. Debris filled the orbital space. The sky above Earth glowed with the light of constant explosions. Human ships used the tactics they had perfected over a year of war. They targeted Council command ships, throwing enemy formations into chaos. They used kamikaze drones that looked like damaged fighters. They hacked Council communications and sent false orders. They fired missiles through clouds of debris where Council sensors could not track them. But it was the new shields that made the real difference. Council weapons that should have destroyed human ships with single hits now took multiple strikes. Human ships survived long enough to close with Council vessels and tear them apart at point-blank range. On the second day, Admiral Sun Wu joined the battle personally. His flagship, the Defiant, led a squadron of heavy cruisers straight into the heart of the Council formation. They punched through the enemy lines and destroyed the Council fleet's primary command carrier. Without central coordination, the Council fleet began to fragment. Individual species squadrons started fighting their own battles rather than working together. Old rivalries between Council species emerged. A Krillian commander accused a Valoran squadron of deliberately failing to support his ships. The Valoran commander responded by withdrawing his entire force from the battle. On the third day, the Council fleet broke. They had lost over 20,000 ships. The survivors retreated in disorder, jumping to faster-than-light speed without waiting for proper formation. Humanity had lost 14,000 ships. Nearly 2 million people were dead. Luna's surface was scarred with craters from ships that had crashed into it. But Earth was safe. The Council's great offensive had failed. In cities across Earth, people celebrated in the streets. They danced and cried and hugged strangers. For the first time since the war began, it felt like they might actually survive. President Minho addressed the planet again. He looked exhausted but hopeful. "We have won a great victory, but the war is not over. The Council will come again. We must use this time to prepare, to rebuild, to grow stronger." He paused and his voice grew softer. "To those who lost loved ones in this battle, your sacrifice will never be forgotten. They died so that humanity could remain free. There is no greater gift they could have given us." In Council space, the mood was very different. The defeat at Luna sent shockwaves through the Empire. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Council had been beaten in open battle. 5 Council species called for peace negotiations. They argued that the cost of continuing the war was too high. But Vectos and his Krillian supporters refused. "We are still stronger," Vectos insisted. "One defeat does not end this war. We will gather our forces and strike again." But many no longer believed him. The Valoran collective openly withdrew from the war. They declared they would no longer send ships or resources to fight humanity. 3 smaller Council species followed their lead. The tribute system, which had stood for 3,000 years, was crumbling. Subject species stopped making payments. Some even began arming themselves, preparing to fight if the Council tried to force them to pay. The Empire was fragmenting. On Mars, Yunji heard about the victory at Luna. She and her fellow resistance fighters emerged from their tunnels long enough to watch a broadcast of the battle. When it was over, they returned to their hidden shelters and continued their war against the occupation forces. "We are winning," her commander told the group. "Not just us. All of humanity. We just need to hold on a little longer." Yunji thought about all the people she had lost. Her brother on Ganymede, her friends in the resistance who had died in ambushes and raids. But she also thought about what they were fighting for. A future where humans bowed to no one. "We will hold," she said, "as long as it takes." 2 years into the war, the Galactic Council faced a crisis they had never imagined possible. Their empire was falling apart from within. Of the 43 species that had paid tribute before the war, only 15 still made full payments. The rest had either stopped paying or reduced their contributions dramatically. The Council's economy was collapsing. They had spent enormous resources fighting humanity, resources that should have been replaced by tribute. Instead, the tribute system itself was failing. Worlds that had been quiet and obedient for centuries now whispered of rebellion. In a desperate move, Speaker Vectos called an emergency session of the Council. Only 4 of the 7 Council species sent representatives. The Valoran Collective, the Meridian Hive, and the Crystalline Assembly had withdrawn from the war entirely. Now only the Krillian Empire and 3 allied species continued to fight. Vectos stood before the diminished council. His scales had lost their shine. He looked old and tired. "We must end this war now. I propose we use planet-killer weapons on Earth, destroy their homeworld and scatter their species. It is the only way to restore order." The chamber erupted in shouts. Even the species still allied with the Krillians were shocked. "That would be genocide." One representative cried. "We would be no better than the ancient tyrants we claim to have replaced." "It would be justice," Vectos roared. "They defied us. They destroyed our fleets. They caused this chaos. They must pay the ultimate price." The vote was called. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, hands were raised. 3 species voted with Vectos. 1 voted against. The decision was made, but word of the plan leaked. A Valoran diplomat who still had contacts in the Council sent an urgent message to Earth. "They are coming with planet killers. You have days, maybe hours. Evacuate if you can." President Minho received the message in the middle of the night. He immediately called Admiral Sunwoo. "How do we stop planet killer weapons?" "We cannot," Sunwoo said bluntly. "If they get close enough to Earth to use them, we lose. Our only option is to make sure they never get that chance." "How?" Sunwoo pulled up a star chart. "We take the war to them. We strike at Krylos, their homeworld. Make them defend their own planet instead of attacking ours." It was a desperate plan. An attack on the Krillian homeworld would require sending most of humanity's fleet deep into enemy territory. If the attack failed, Earth would be defenseless. But if they did nothing, Earth would be destroyed anyway. Minho made the decision. "Do it." Admiral Sunwoo assembled every ship humanity could spare. 50,000 vessels, including ships that were barely spaceworthy. He formed them into a massive fleet. Leading them would be himself, General Heejin, Captain Jamin, and Daeho, who had been promoted to admiral after his bravery in the war's early battles. But they were not alone. The Valoran Collective sent 10,000 ships to join them. "We may not be at war with the Council anymore," the Valoran commander said, "but we will not allow genocide. Not in our name." Ships from 6 other species joined as well. Small forces, but every ship mattered. For the first time, a coalition was forming against the Council, rather than serving under them. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. The journey to Krylos would take 10 days. During that time, Earth evacuated as many people as possible to the outer colonies. Everyone knew this was their last chance. Either Sunwoo's plan would work, or humanity would die. The Council fleet carrying the planet killers left for Earth, but they moved slowly, their massive weapons requiring careful navigation. By the time they would reach Earth, Sunwoo's fleet would already be at Krylos. The human Valoran coalition dropped out of faster-than-light space near the Krillian homeworld. It was a beautiful planet with purple oceans and green continents. 3 moons orbited it, each one fortified with defense platforms. Admiral Daiho sent a message to the planet's surface. People of Krylos, we are not here to destroy your world. We are here to stop your leaders from destroying ours. Stand down your defenses and no one needs to die. The response was immediate. Thousands of defense platforms opened fire. The Kryllian home fleet, over 30,000 strong, moved to intercept. The largest space battle of the war began. The human Velaran fleet pushed forward, taking heavy losses but never stopping. They fought with desperate courage, knowing that every minute they delayed was another minute Earth had to prepare. General Hyojin led a strike force directly at the defense platforms orbiting the planet. Her ships took terrible damage, but they destroyed platform after platform. Debris rained down on Krylos, burning up in the atmosphere like meteors. Captain Jamin used the tactics that had won him fame. His squadron struck at the Kryllian command ships, disrupting their coordination. Without clear orders, the Kryllian fleet fought in chaos. For 2 days, the battle raged. Both sides lost thousands of ships. The space around Krylos was filled with wreckage and bodies. But slowly, inevitably, the human Velaran fleet pushed closer to the planet. Admiral Sunwoo sent another message. Your world is defenseless now. We could destroy it, but we will not. We are not here for conquest. We are here to offer peace. On the planet's surface, the Kryllian military leadership met in emergency session. News from the front was devastating. Their fleets were being destroyed. Their defenses were broken, and humanity had chosen mercy when they could have chosen revenge. In the council chambers, far from the battle, the remaining council members received updates. Their plan had failed. The fleet carrying planet killers to Earth had turned back when they heard about the attack on Krylos. Without the Kryllian homeworld secure, they could not risk pushing forward. A junior Kryllian officer, a veteran of the battles against humanity, stood before the military council on Krylos. Honored leaders, we have lost. But more than that, we were wrong. We called humans primitives, but they showed us mercy we never showed them. I request permission to open negotiations. The senior generals looked at each other. Then slowly, the oldest among them nodded. Contact the human fleet. Tell them we will talk. The war did not end immediately. Fighting continued in some sectors for weeks. But once the Kryllians agreed to negotiate, the other council species quickly followed. No one wanted to be the last species still fighting a war they could not win. Ambassador Jiwon returned to the conclave sphere for the 3rd time. The chamber looked different now. Many seats were empty. The 7 thrones of the council members seemed smaller somehow, less imposing. Vectos was not there. He had been removed from power by his own people. A new Kryllian representative sat in his place, a younger female who had argued against the war from the start. The negotiations lasted for months. Both sides made demands. Both sides compromised. The final treaty was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The tribute system was abolished completely. All species would be sovereign and equal. The Galactic Council would be reformed as an assembly where every spacefaring species had a voice and a vote. No species could be forced to serve another. No species could be punished for refusing to obey. Humanity gained a seat in the new assembly, equal to the ancient species who had once demanded their submission. Reparations would be paid to rebuild worlds damaged in the war, flowing both from the former council species to humanity and from humanity to worlds where civilians had suffered. President Minho signed the treaty on behalf of humanity. His hand shook slightly as he wrote his name. 2 years of war, millions dead, countless more wounded or displaced, but humanity was free. In his final speech as president, Minho stood before the United Earth Assembly. He looked at the representatives from every nation, every colony, every outpost where humans lived. We paid a terrible price for our freedom, he said. We lost people we loved. We saw our cities burn and our ships destroyed. Many of you will carry the scars of this war for the rest of your lives. But we never surrendered. When the council demanded we kneel, we stood tall. When they demanded tribute, we gave them defiance. When they tried to break us, we broke their empire instead. He paused, looking at a quote displayed on the wall behind him. A wise person once said, "Those who would give up essential liberty for temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." We could have chosen safety. We could have paid their tribute and lived as subjects. But we chose liberty, and that choice changed the galaxy. 5 years after the war ended, Admiral Daiho oversaw the construction of a new station in neutral space. It would serve as the headquarters for the reformed Galactic Assembly. Ships from dozens of species worked together, building something new from the ruins of the old empire. On Mars, Yunji had returned to her old job as a mining engineer. The scars on her arms reminded her of the years she had spent fighting, but the colony was rebuilding. Children played in the streets again. Life was returning to normal. She received a message one day from a young Krillian. He had been a soldier in the occupation force on Mars. He wrote to apologize for the things he had done during the war. Yunji read the message 3 times before responding. "I forgive you," she wrote, "not because what you did was right, but because holding on to anger will not bring back the people we lost. We are building something new now. We should build it together, at the new galactic